Former National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, John Hanna, is our guest now. He also said, John, that on the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, that presidents do not often get the freedom to work with what he described as unblemished partners, and that kind of thing is what James Mattis has been saying. Let me start on that first statement, though, that I said, that it hasn't been established whether or not MBS, Mohammed Bin Salman, the Crown Prince, had ordered the killing. Is that credible, or do you look at news reports, your knowledge of the region, and other factors and say that we know that he was behind it? What's your take?
Well, of course, I haven't seen any of the intelligence on this, Connell, but I've got to say that from very early on, once I heard about the people involved in this, their relationships, very close relationships to Mohammed bin Salman himself, knowing how Saudi Arabia itself works under the leadership of Mohammed bin Salman, who has been a real control freak, it's hard for me to believe that this kind of premeditated action to kill Khashoggi didn't occur without some knowledge of the Crown Prince.
So with that as the backdrop, when Secretary Mattis comes out moments ago and says that, for example, if you want to end the war with Yemen, you have to work with Saudi Arabia. So is there justification for the president's approach to this, in your view?
Yes, I mean, no question. The choice in the Middle East isn't between good and bad. It really is between bad and worse. And that's the choice we've had with Saudi Arabia in this administration and virtually every president before President Trump, dating back to World War II, since this partnership with the Saudis started, has had this very difficult choice of how do you balance your strategic interests on the one hand with the fact that you're dealing with a partner who shares almost none of your values. And that's really the spot in the corner that President Trump is in here. We've got real strategic interests in Yemen. The Iranians are backing a group that chants at every major rally, death to America, death to Israel, God curse the Jews. There's a real problem there. As much as we want to end that war in Yemen, we can't do it at any cost that simply hands the keys of the southern Arabian Peninsula over to another Hezbollah-like movement.
So one of the things, if all that's right, one of the things maybe that's throwing people off more than anything else about the last couple of days is that the president's statement yesterday and then his comments on the South Lawn, there wasn't any nuance to it. He basically came out and said, follow up on what you're saying, that, hey, this is more important, this economic relationship that we have, the strategic relationship we have, than this murder. Whereas I think maybe in the past, we wouldn't have heard that kind of thing from past administrations, Republican or Democrat. There would have been more nuance to the statement, or maybe what's happening in front of the cameras would have happened behind the scenes. Is there any importance to that in terms of how countries interact and what the ramifications of those interactions are?
I actually do. I've got real problems with that statement. Well, I think, as I've said, I think the president ended up pretty much more or less at the right place. Right. I just think that the music in the statement was all wrong. Mohammed bin Salman has been on a bad path long before this really shocking murder of Khashoggi. Right. That really raises serious questions about his reliability as a partner for the United States. So I'd much have preferred the president to have a lot more anger and vinegar in that statement rather than honey.
Is there a consequence? Is there a consequence, though? Well, I'm sure he and the administration officials that agree with him on this would say that there's not. That it's all about the economics, as cold-hearted as it might sound. But is there a consequence to, even if you end up in a place where the two of you essentially agree by the process of how you get there? So and if so, what is that consequence?
Well, I think the consequence is that Mohammed bin Salman has to know that he's in the docket, that we still haven't made a judgment about whether he's going to be a partner that we can continue to work with. And therefore, if he wants to get the kind of U.S. restraint that the president is giving him right now, he's got to very rapidly take concrete actions to address very real American concerns about his behavior and the messes that he's created in places like Yemen and Qatar, right, and locking up these women rights activists that, if reports are to believe, he's even been torturing and abusing recently.
John Hanna, always good to see you, and thank you for coming on.